10. When Sivan picked up Mabel from the coffee shop a little while later, Mabel did her best to act as if nothing strange had happened that day. She didn't want to talk about it. She didn't know what to say. So Mabel just watched the pine trees blur by as they drove down Blue Angel Parkway. They passed shopping complexes and neighborhoods of cute, clapboard houses. The farther they got from Spite Lane, the more unreal what had happened seemed, and Mabel started to question whether it had happened at all. Still, Mabel was afraid of accidentally blurting out anything that might reveal what she thought had happened. Luckily, Sivan didn't try to make small talk on the way home. Maybe he thought she was still angry after their argument earlier. Or maybe he sensed her babysitting job hadn't gone well. Either way, the ride was silent, and for that, Mabel was grateful. When they got home, Mabel ran to her room and closed her bedroom door behind her. Her immediate instinct was to check her closet. It had unfinished birch wood folding doors that stood wide open. Inside was a shamble of boxes, clothes, and old toys. No sign of any monsters. No strobing yellow lights. No toy trains with garishly large eyes and bulging mouths that begged for adventure. Mabel scanned her bedroom walls. Her father had painted them a cheery blue when she was little. There had never been any wallpaper border. Posters of her favorite band and movies adorned the walls under softly blinking string lights. A giant bulletin board burst with family photos, birthday cards, and inspirational quotes. A mirror box with a thin glass shelf held a few trinkets she'd collected over the years. A vintage yo-yo, a carved ivory elephant, and a teacup from a children's tea set she'd broken long ago. Mabel sighed. There was nothing to be afraid of here. Nothing but herself. From one back pocket, she pulled her phone and tossed it on the bed covers. From the other pocket, she pulled a wallet. She held it gingerly, running her fingers over the soft leather and decorative stitching, turning it over and over in her hands. It wasn't just any wallet. And it wasn't Mabel's. It had belonged to Miss Thomas. Mabel had swiped it from the purse hanging on the hook by the door as she ran from the Thomas home. She hadn't thought about it before she'd done it. She'd just grabbed it and run. Did that count as stealing? Mabel knew the answer. She'd swiped the woman's wallet, same as her mother swiped her brother's money from his sock drawer. It wasn't right. But was it wrong? Some part of her felt justified. After all, if the Thomas family hadn't been swallowed by the closet, Christy would have paid her what she was owed. And she was owed. Mabel unzipped Christy's wallet. It was full of cash. The perfect amount of which to pay Mabel for Wednesday and Thursday. No more, no less. It wasn't really stealing. If the Thomas family were alive, she could always give it back. As Mabel pulled it out, she realized there was also a small photo. It was a family portrait, the three of them smiling, Christy, Twyla, and Twyla's dad. They looked happy, just like the images burned into the wallpaper border. Mabel whipped the wallet onto the floor as though it were a hot coal. Just then, someone knocked. The door cracked open. It was Sivan. He stuck his face through the opening and said, "Hey, sorry to bother you." "It's okay," Mabel said, as she slid the cash under her butt. Sivan opened the door a little wider and stepped inside. I just wanted to let you know that I can't give you a ride tomorrow. I was scheduled to take over someone else's shift. Do you think you could get a ride from someone else, or maybe take the bus? It's okay, Mabel assured him. I'm not going back. You're not? Everything okay? Oh, totally, Mabel lied. It's just that the kid is, sick. Sivan nodded. Then he pointed at her bed with his chin. What are you going to do with all that dough? Mabel frowned. Don't act like I don't know that trick. Sivan laughed. You hid a bunch of money under your butt as soon as I walked in. Don't worry. I'm not going to steal it. Mabel blushed. Caught. She glanced quickly to the side to make sure Miss Thomas's wallet was out of Sivan's line of sight, hidden just barely behind her clothes hamper. At least he didn't know about the wallet. I'm taking my friends out for Halloween. We're going to see a movie. Sivan's shoulders loosened and a dopey smile spread across his face. That's really generous of you, Mabel. She smiled, but her belly burned with an acrid fire. It's not generous if it's not your money to spend, a voice said, in the back of Mabel's mind. Sivan turned to leave. Sivan, wait, Mabel said, sliding the money out from under her. Here, I owe you. She held out a $5 bill. Her older brother waved her off. Don't worry about it, he said. I just end up putting it back in my sock drawer, and then, well, you know what would happen. And I know you wouldn't approve. Mabel chewed her lip before deciding what she wanted to say. I think I kind of understand. About Mom. I mean, I don't. But I want to. Sivan's giant brown eyes considered her as he said in a gentle tone, families take care of each other, right? I know it isn't conventional, but this is how I help take care of Mom. And us. Once again, Mabel didn't know what to say. With that, he left, and Mabel was all alone. Later that evening, once Mabel was done with her homework, she realized she hadn't eaten since lunch. Her stomach growled at her to get a snack. On her way down the hall, she passed Sivan's half-open door and caught a glimpse of him propped up, yet asleep, on his bed. Mabel's heart swelled with pride. He was a good brother. The best. He made her lunches, and he drove her around. The least she could do was turn off his bedside lamp so he could get a good night's sleep. As she approached, she saw he'd been reading a letter that now lay on his chest. That was odd. On closer look, Mabel was alarmed by the harsh words leaping from the page. Notice of termination, it said at the top. Further down, it read, You must vacate the premises. And there was a date. Mabel quickly scanned the document. She didn't understand all of it, but she got the gist. Their lease was being terminated for non-payment. They were being kicked out of their house unless they caught up on their rent. They had less than 30 days. No wonder Sivan had been so willing to help their mom with money. Things were far worse than Mabel could have ever imagined. Fear coursed through Mabel's veins. It was a very different kind of fear than the kind she'd experienced at the Thomas house on Spite Lane. This time, the monster wasn't after her. It was after her family. Mabel silently flipped off Sivan's lamp and slinked back to her own room, her appetite non-existent. There had to be something she could do. Her mind was swirling, as she walked over to the shelf and grabbed the piggy bank. She slipped off the false bottom and studied the money folded there. She was so confused. She just wanted to go to Torture Town with her friends and have some fun. And she didn't want to help her mom. Katie was the one who had gotten them into this mess. But she wanted to help Sivan, and she didn't want them to have to move out. Mabel grabbed the folded stack of bills and carried it to Sivan's room, where she silently stuffed it into his sock drawer. Then she went back to her room and crawled under the covers of her bed and squeezed her eyes shut. Her mind buzzed. Her ears rung, and her heart felt like it might beat straight out of her chest. Now she had nothing to pay for tickets to Torture Town. What was she going to tell her friends? As Mabel drifted off to sleep, she kept hearing Bones's voice, as though the possessed toy were whispering in her ear. "We're running out of time. We're running out of time."